minute. And then, do you have any announcements for like upcoming plant related stuff or anything?
Everybody knows about WOW, I assume, Wonders of Wildflower Weekend, which is coming up. And one week, please.
Man,
The 20 is the 27th, right? Yes, it's the 26th, 27th, 28th. If you go to the website, you can register. I don't know if you're still able to get meals, but you would be able to still register right up to that time.
Okay.
that's the 19th.
19th.
Sorry? The night up to the 19th
Yeah.
for the meals? Okay, so you can still get meals. That's great.
That's fun, isn't it?
I'm
All-
sorry?
Basically all on our own except for the lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not doing it. It's the Northeast chapter, so I'm not quite familiar with the whole schedule, but it is on the website. And you can still register, and it's a blast because the WOW weekend is like what everybody dreams of what a Native Plant Society meeting would be, which means that there's really little meeting. You just walk around and look at stuff. So it's really cool. And then just to put a bug in your ear, if I may, Adam, help me.
What's that?
The annual meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's at Roberts Cave. So the WOW weekend is at Roberts Cave, which is southeast Oklahoma, very beautiful. And then when's the annual meeting?
It's October 4th through 6th.
October 4th through 6th. You will be getting registrations in your Gaillardia.
It's a little bit early for that.
It's a little bit early for that, and that will be at Romanov. And they've redone the lodge, so it should be very nice. And Adam is cooking breakfast for everybody.
Oh, yeah. Both days.
And next month is Sean Washington presenting here. And that's going to be May. And then June and July, there's no monthly meeting. We're gonna do some plant walks we have planned. In OKC. And then, I don't know, we gotta figure out who in the fall. So, figure that out. If you guys have ideas, let me or somebody know for events.
If there's actually anyone in the room who thinks they want to.
Yeah. For sure. Okay. This is Lauren Rosenfelt. She's going to present her master's work that she's working on at OU. Thanks for coming. I'm excited to hear your presentation. So we can get started.
Hi, everybody. As Michael just said, my name is Lauren Rosenfelt. And I'm in two labs at OU, plant ecology and pollinator lab. And today I am going to share with you my research in ecosystem multifunctionality. We gotta always look at it because it's really long. Benefits of blooming forb communities to local pollinators and soil properties, from carbon sequestration to water. So first of all, I just have to acknowledge all the people that are helping with this giant project. My advisor, Dr. Laura Souza, my co-advisor, Dr. James Hahn, as well as my committee member, Dr. Heather McCarthy, and the other professors and labs who have let us use their teams and camping all with us, as well as all of the wonderful undergraduates who helped me with work in the field as well as in the lab. And my fellow grad student, grad and lab mates, one of who is here today, as well. I have to acknowledge all of the people who let us use their land for all of these surveys and collections, including these 2022 and 2023 sites. There. To begin with, most of us probably know this, the worldwide biodiversity has been reducing. This map is showing a biodiversity impact index. And within the Great Plains of North America, we can see that there is a very dark red colored, which is indicating less than 60% biodiversity. So basically, more than 40% of biodiversity has been lost in these dark red areas, which are residing in. So before going too far, I do want to introduce functions, ecosystem functions. As you can see here, biodiversity is a large component of functionality within ecosystems. These are known as biotic mechanisms, and in addition, so this is kind of a feedback loop, and we can start, I guess, at the human activities at the top, where you see that human activities are linked with global changes, such as species invasions and land use changes, and these global changes can affect abiotic controls such as temperature and disturbance regimes, as well as biodiversity. And these link into ecosystem functions, which are broadly named here as ecosystem goods, services, and profits. And then these then link back to our activities in the cycle. So my work looks at ecosystem multifunctionality, which is a holistic approach to researching ecosystems by looking at biotic and abiotic mechanisms and how they work together within their own biotic mechanisms and abiotic mechanisms separately, and how these work together and contribute to society as well as other living beings in the search that we care for. So going back to our mapping area, the Great Plains is predominantly made up of the grassland biome, and grasslands are throughout the entire world. In the United States, we are looking at prairies. So there's a gradient from the west of shortgrass prairies to the middle, which are mixed grass prairies, and to the far east, we have tall grass prairies. So prairies are very important. They have a lot of support for biodiversity both above and below ground. And part of this biodiversity is supported by the native plants that have been evolving there for a really long time. So some of the native plants include those that are medicinal as well as edible. We have culturally significant plants, and these plants can provide food as well as habitat for many native vertebrates and invertebrates, including pollinators. So why are prairies important below ground? I'm sure most of us know that there are very deep root systems in prairies of prairie plants. And there are benefits from these systems of roots that are both physical and chemically functioning within the soil. So these deep root systems allow water filtration as well as fluxes and retention, as well as in storage. And then they also are able to reach certain certain parent materials in the soil to bring up rich nutrients to the topsoils. They sequester carbon, they sequester a lot of carbon, comparable to the below ground forests sequestration. So that's just holding on to the carbon within their roots. And then they also have a very unique microbial diversity, which is not difference. But unfortunately, grasslands worldwide are underprotected and overconverted. So we can see here that grasslands are among the most converted at the very top of biomes throughout the world. So 45.8% of temperate grasslands, along with temperate savannas and shrublands, have been converted as of 2005. So I'm sure it's been more since then. And then only 4.6% of grasslands are currently protected. So this gives us a very high conservation risk index of 10 to 1. So one thing that is driving prairie conversions, at least in other areas, are human development. So massive land cover, or massive land cover changes reduce ecological function because they reduce ultimately biodiversity. These conversions usually end up, if we're looking at plants, into monocultures, staple crops and fruit grasses. So some results that have happened because of these conversions are that now less than 4% of grassland, tall grass prairies in the US remain. And erosion in agricultural areas has led to more than 1/3 of the topsoil being lost in the Midwest. It's a vast amount. So prairie conversions reduce native plant diversity. These negatively affect multiple trophic levels, so from our primary producers to herbivores, predators, these are those kind of things, trophic levels. So below ground declines and pollinator populations are mostly what my work is focused on. So in the below ground, we're reducing soil microbial diversity and abundance, which can reduce a multitude of ecological functions, carbon sequestration, water filtration, nutrient cycling, and litter decomposition. And then globally, pollinator populations and habitats are facing steep global threats. So this is due to habitat loss and fragmentation, removal of food resources such as forbs, which are flowers that are nectar and pollen producing plants. And sorry, I'm gonna get some more. And then host plants for our So I'd like to start talking about pollinators. So there's been a lot of efforts that we've probably seen similar or artwork like this that is wanting to save the bees and save the world and save the honeybees because they pollinated all these different types of species. And it is generally focused on honeybees. A lot of other species of pollinators do not, bees in general do not make honey, nor are they associated with honeycombs. So the hexagonal shape, but these honeybees are doing great. Like they are domestic species, and they're also wild, but the domestic species have very high abundance in their population.
So there are some for wild.
There are some that are wild that just get loose, and the ones that are in the trees, and yeah, so those ones are we consider wild. So in my research, I look at different types of pollinators that we include honeybees because sometimes they may be present, but we also look at different types of bees, such as bees that are shown, as well as wasps. So these are in the Hymenoptera family. Hymenoptera also include ants, but ants are not flying. They don't fly all the time, so they aren't very great at spreading pollen from plant to plant. We also look at Lepidoptera, including butterflies and moths. Coleoptera, which are beetles, and beetles are the most ancient of pollinators, and it is really cool, and they're the biggest order as well. So there are a lot of different types of beetles. Also, Diptera, the unsung hero of pollination. We look at bee flies and hoverflies, as well as other types of flies that visit flowers. And then the last suborder is Sauroptera, which includes true bugs. So among all of these pollinators, there are what is known as specialists and generalists. So the differences include looking at, so a pollinator is looking at a group of flowers, and a generalist would be like, this is a buffet, I got all the food in the world, I'm gonna eat this. Any one of these plants is gonna be filling me. But a specialist is not going to see or benefit from all of these plants, but mainly benefit from one of the species that is there. And if that species isn't there, then that specialist is going to have to move on until they find their one plant. So generalists and specialists are all dependent on certain things, such as species, the life stages that these pollinators are at, such as their juvenile state or their adult state, as well as the region that they're in. So just to give a few examples and to share some cute photos of pollinators, the osmia bee is actually a very great pollinator. They're like right up there with honeybees. They will, they're very much generalists. There are some species specifically that in this family that are specialists, but the majority of them are generalists. Osmia bees also pollinate our staple crops, so they're really important and really great. And they make their nests out of mud, and they also are stem nesters. So sometimes they will, you'll find in tall thistles that don't have the head anymore because they have a hollow stem. They will just or put their nest in there, and their young will live for a while. Yeah, so I have some more stuff about that later. So the goldenrod soldier beetle is kind of in the middle. It's like a generalist. It's also kind of a specialist. His name is goldenrod, but we all know that like goldenrod is a very broad, very big family of plants. But they like to be on goldenrod. So like during the time that they're blooming, you'll likely see a bunch of these goldenrod soldier beetles on the plants themselves. And an interesting fact about these is that they're pollinators and they're also predators, and at their juvenile state, they're in the soil eating grasshoppers, aphids, as well as caterpillars. We all know that caterpillars have to be out there. But they also feed on the aphids. It's pretty cool. And then our special example is the cellophane bee. These are crown nesters. They are associated with very few plants. So the upright prairie clover is one that bees like to feed on. So if you have those in your garden, know that you are feeding cellophane bees. So now we're going to get into the research and ecosystem multifunctionality. So this is the broad categories of what my research is looking at. So I look at soil physical and chemical properties, plant species and functional traits. I also look at pollinator taxonomic identification, and I take observations, which I'm going to do that a little bit later. And then in progress, we also have invertebrate tax ID, plant root analysis, and our 2023 soil properties, soil properties from 2022. And then my work is focused mainly on grasslands, so I can do that background on grasslands. So these are 3 different types of habitat types that can be found in urban as well as outside of urban areas. So we've got the Bermuda grass turf, which is predominantly made up of graminoids or grass species, and most of these species are non-native. And we look at pollinator gardens, which includes, they're mostly flower dominant or forb dominant. And these are a mix of natives, non-natives, as well as cultivars. And then we also look at remnant prairies, which are for and graminoid mix kind of equally. And then these are mainly native species with some non-native invasive encroachment. So the questions that I'm asking in my research are just 2 of them, but they're, looking at all these types of variables, it is a lot. But what my first question is feed plant communities across habitat types, like I just showed you, drive abiotic and biotic processes in topsoils that contribute to ecosystem multifunctionality, or EMF, as I will use both terms. My second question is, do urban pollinator gardens have high ecosystem multifunctionality comparable to native prairie habitats? And do Bermuda grass turfs have lower EMF? So my first hypothesis, for my first question, my first and only hypothesis, is that plant diversity and functional trait richness contribute to positive physical and chemical properties of soil. So again, to let you know that the main reason that we're looking at turf grasses, especially Bermuda grass turf grasses, is because they are part of these massive land changes in plant communities. So this is a map of Bermuda grasses, which are also known as Phytodon dactylon. These are where they are present. They're just like found within these areas where these counties throughout our nation. So turf grass, just to give you some numbers from 2016, I believe. Yeah, I think it's 2016. But the turf grass covers an area 3 times greater than any of our irrigated crops. And so this is approximately 163,000 kilometers square. Yeah, so you brought up code. So the more that you mow Bermuda grass, the easily it spreads more. So we're promoting its growth as we mow it, and it also grows from underground solids as well as seeds. It is a mighty invasive species that likes to just kind of go wherever it can. And it's really hard to get rid of. In some places, it's known as devil grass, but I can't hate on it too much because we gotta love plants anyways. It does have medicinal properties, and it's a sacred plant in certain countries. But yeah, but in our area, it can be detrimental possibly to ecosystem functions and potentially biodiversity. So for the state of Oklahoma, it is the most frequently found plant throughout most all of our counties. This is from a study from the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation in 2015, showing that the herbaceous, the highest found herbaceous plant in Oklahoma is Dactylon, Bermuda grass. So this species is predominantly in more urban areas and can spread from there. So this is just a map to show you my sites, which are in the Canadian, Oklahoma, Cleveland, McCain counties. And the ones that are more red are going to be more developed areas, and the ones that are more green, which are mostly our prairies, are the surrounded by more natural areas. So this is another map that shows all the red areas is developed. And in 2022, we surveyed 9 sites. That was 3 sites per habitat. And in 2023, we looked at 18 sites, which is 6 sites per habitat. And to share how we did our studies, we made a grid with the northeast corner starting at A1. And it was generally or approximately this size varies. But it was approximately at the largest scale, 20 by 20 meters squared. We randomly selected 10 of these random numbers and made these our quadrats. That is a 1 meter by 1 meter squared area that we did our surveys. And then we collected all of these observations from those quadrats. So this is to demonstrate, so again, going back to my first question, how we collected our soil cores. We have, again, the 10 randomly selected quadrats, and then we took from the topsoil the 10 centimeter depth, and then we collected all of those from the same area on the west side of the quadrat. So again, my question was, do plant communities across habitat types drive biotic and abiotic processes in topsoil that contribute to the system functionality? And I believe that plant diversity and functional trait richness contribute to positive physical and chemical properties of the soil. So this is our first and only physical trait that we picked up was gravimetric water content. It is an indicator of water retention, and we can see from on the x-axis that it starts at Bermuda grass, the middle one is pollinator gardens, and our permanent prairies at the last. And then on our y-axis is our gravimetric water content. And then our chemical properties included from the left, from the right of the gravimetric water content, the total nitrogen, the total carbon, and then the microbial carbon biomass or biomass carbon. And from our analyses, we did not find any significant differences. But looking at this, we can see a trend that soil properties are generally greater in pollinator gardens. But from analysis, no significant. So that was all that I looked at for my first one, and that answered our question. So our second hypothesis, or our second question, is do urban pollinator gardens have greater EMF compared to, do they have high ecosystem multifunctionality as compared to native prairie habitats? And do Bermuda grass have lower? And our first hypothesis is that plant community composition that are rich in native and diverse species contribute to greater ecosystem multifunctionality. So again, to show you our methods, we've identified the species, functional groups of plants, flower cover, blooming cover, and then ground covers, fairground and litter, in all of our quadrants, the same quadrants from where we took our soil cores. So this is a principal coordinate analysis, looking at pretty much what we're just trying to look at is where are these points in relation to each other. So we have it separated as habitat type. We found that there is a difference between these plant communities, and I mean, there's a lot of reasons that we would assume that that would be the case, but we found that there is a difference. And remnant prairies, we can see are in this bottom corner, so this are native plants, and we can see that the pollinator gardens overlap with that. That does account for what we were mentioning before, that native plants are also in pollinator gardens. And then the Bermuda grass are very far away from the remnant prairies. They're also very spread apart, so they have lots of different types of species. I will note that there are more species in the early summer, which is when these species. So during the later part of the season, I'll show you that things do kind of change for Bermuda grass. So for pollinator observations, this was like really fun because I didn't want to kill anything. So what we did is we visited 4 times each site, and we located the blooming cover. So this is myself and another undergrad that did this in 2023. I did it alone in 2022. But we would go to, if there's at least 4 areas where we can take the observations, then we would take the observations from 4. If there was less than that, then there would be no blooming species, no observations. So we would sit at these quadrats for 30 minutes, and waiting for any type of pollinator or flower visitor to touch the reproductive parts of the plants, and we would tally that as a visit. So this is a little bit different than the other graph, but it's very close to the same type of reading. The farther away, the closer that things are, is the more similar that they are to each other as taxa. So this is, I didn't get down to species because it's not identify different types of species just by looking under a microscope. So these are taxonomic observations and about the communities. So what we found again is that there was a significant difference between the habitats for the pollinator communities. So there are different little species coming into these different flower communities, which makes sense. So then we were able to, this is preliminary data. I didn't get to finish all the stuff for all the analysis for 2022, because 2023 quickly arrived. And we, so this is for our first hypothesis of our second question, that plant community compositions that are in native and diverse species contribute greater to ecosystem multifunctionality. And so there is a way that we utilize, which is called this multifunctionality flower, to get kind of a reading of how able are these plants, or how able are these habitats able to contribute to ecosystem multifunctionality. So what we can see is that there's only 5 variables. We had way more than that, but we didn't, like I said, didn't get to finish this part. But hopefully by December, I'll have that done. So we only have from the top plant species richness as an indicator, soil organic carbon, soil microbial biomass, pollinator taxonomic richness, and plant biomass. So the further along that these gray areas are, means that that is how much function there is occurring there. And these were taken by averages, and then don't have my notes, but they're proportionally related to each other, and that's how we got these scores. So ultimately, these are our multifunctionality scores. We have pollinator gardens performing very high at 94%. Closely behind that is remnant prairies, and then Bermuda grass curves. So we like to explain this as the carbon, soil organic carbon, and soil microbial biomass carbon are relative to the plant biomass. So there's more plant biomass in the pollinator gardens as compared to the other habitats. And then the pollinator taxonomic richness is also relative to plant biomass. But we can see here that pollinator gardens actually have fewer species in their plots than do remnant prairies, which we would expect, and also kind of surprising. Bermuda grass has a lot more species generally in their areas or in their plots. So now on to the pollinators. My second hypothesis is that plant communities with longer blooming durations are main drivers of pollinator abundance and diversity. So this is similar to our soil analyses. We looked at habitat on the y-axis or the x-axis, and this is showing pollinator taxonomic richness. So it's basically how many different types of pollinators are in a given area. And the averages are shown by these points here. And for pollinator taxonomic richness, it wasn't too surprising for a flower dominant space to have more pollinators. And again, this is over a season time. And yeah, so there is a difference between the habitat types for pollinator abundance. We also looked at richness, but we also looked at abundance, which is the same, where it is different between habitat types. And again, so we see these trends of pollinator gardens having greater taxonomic richness as well as pollinator abundance. This really cool graph that we just made this week is showing that over a season, which this is where the rounds, so each time that are visited, so this is later in or early summer, later summer, that kind of goes on to the fall. But we can see that the total amount of taxonomic pollinators or pollinator taxa that are in Bermuda grass, pollinator gardens, and verdant prairies over time, we can see that this trend that for Bermuda grass, it does support pollinators for some time, but then near later part of the season, it drops and it goes to zero. Whereas, interestingly enough, these both have the same trend where they support pollinators, they kind of go down with their taxa, and now the taxa that they support, and then they go back up later in the season. And then this is the abundance. So it does have a little bit different trends. Not really sure what to, I mean, this one is again, like there's not a lot of, so maybe there's more taxa in the Bermuda grass, but there's not a lot of pollinators visiting in general. But we can see here pollinators gardens are supporting quite a bit, but their abundance kind of goes down, but remnant prairies kind of tip and then go back up.
Sorry, what's the time on your round?
Yeah, so I'm just getting that right now. So this is the first round, which is early summer.
Okay, thank
Yes, and so we'll get to the
I
early
jumped
summer.
ahead. I get impatient. Hurry up. Okay, sorry.
So we have early summer, midsummer, and then the other two. So this is round one, round two. In the early part of the season, we found that there were differences in the community types of pollinators. So each one of these habitats has a different type of pollinators that they support, but it's kind of interesting that we see that the prairie species, the species of pollinators that you find in a prairie that are working with these native plants are also found here in our urban areas, Bermuda grass and pollinator gardens. And then in the, let's see, okay, because I haven't observed this one yet. So we've got the interestingly enough, I guess now the Bermuda grass is overlapping with both of these, and the others were not kind of overlapping with each other. So these it kind of ranges, I guess, with the Bermuda grass, the types of pollinators that it's supporting from prairie species to pollinator species.
So, excuse me, those numbers mean that's how many insects or pollinators you saw during the 4-minute observation? Okay.
So these numbers are these types.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like
All right.
observation numbers, yeah, so type. So yeah, the numbers started do not represent so this is the late summer and early fall, so this is 3 and 4, round 3 and 4. And here, like we saw on those trends, Bermuda grass is no longer present, and then there's no longer a difference between the communities of these different habitat types.
But why is it no longer present? Because I thought Bermuda grass was there always.
Bermuda grass is there, but it is not a flower. Like it doesn't feed pollinators. So what we're seeing here is that this is the right spot to stand. That's why I'm going back to the other So Bermuda grass, we're seeing here that it's supporting pollinators in the springtime. So there are a lot of spring low growing forbs at that time of year. So there's like
I was gonna ask you,
yeah,
I don't really mean.
yeah, clover, that's right.
Does
Clover,
white clover?
yes.
help pollinators and all that?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yeah. Any type of flower they're going to feed from. There are also like native grasses that, like little blue stem, that benefit certain pollinators. So, but Bermuda grass itself is a wind-blown pollination system, so it doesn't support any type of flower visitors or pollinators that are insect.
So when you're saying that Bermuda grass supports, what you really are saying is that the volunteers in the Bermuda.
Yes, sorry. So the Bermuda grass habitat is how we named it. Yeah. So the habitat is like Bermuda grass is very greatly present, and there are volunteers in there as well. They're mostly non-native. All right. So to give you conclusions of the results that we found, habitat types differ in plant and pollinator communities, at least in 2022 and 2023, but the soil variables did not differ. That's what I would say. They did not differ in 2022. Because we haven't gotten to all of our soil problems. We're working on it, but it will be done sometime later on. Pollinator gardens from this analysis have the highest UMF scores, and Bermuda grass habitats have the lowest in 2022. And then remnant prairies are important ecoregions that are rich in native species, and efforts towards prairie conservation should continue.
And may I ask a question? You know, with the ones with the Bermuda grass, I was kind of shocked that it actually fed, but it's really like what we call the weeds in our lawn.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
volunteers,
It's
the
what a lot of people don't want,
yeah.
and they're, okay, that's actually feeding them.
Yeah, little
Okay.
masters, they're all little things.
Well, I mean, it could be dandelions
Yeah,
too, couldn't it?
it is.
Yeah.
Yes, all of these forms that are in obviously that we're like, oh, I don't know it, you know, and stuff like those are like, yeah. Okay, so this is where results continue. I'm almost this, and we can open it up for more questions. So these findings indicate that pollinators are high functioning, and so both above and below ground would contribute to ecosystem functions for humans, especially in areas where remnant prairies have been replaced by lower functioning plant communities such as Bermuda grass and their fellow volunteers. And so, yeah, so if you can't replace with a prairie, replace with a park, pollinator garden. And then pollinator gardens consisting of mostly native plants would be reasonably suited for habitats and prairie restoration if possible. So this is the fun part. I think all of that was fun. Hopefully it was fun for the patients. So now I've got some take-home messages. Right, probably like you guys. One was good there because I like the pictures. So yeah, if you see some nibbles on your plants, just know that that is supporting our little friends. It's promoting or it's providing nutrients for hungry species. These pollinator gardens also support multiple trophic levels. So even those who give unwelcome pests like spiders. It also provides for specialist bees, where right now, like the lab that I'm in, pollinator lab with Dr. James Funk, is doing an inventory of all of the native bee species or all the bee species in Oklahoma, because we don't have it. We don't have an inventory of our bee species. So the more we can support these specialists, the better. So yeah, if you can, in most guides nowadays, they have like specialist bees on like this type of plant that supports them. So just look out for those. And then one thing that we also know about native plants is that they adapt to our climatic conditions. And then also again, I just want to point out that flies are super great at pollinating and we gotta give them love. Even the ones that you find annoying in your house and stuff.
House
They
flies?
they also, they also pollinate, yeah, just one else fly. In your garden. They're just so fast. You don't see them. So yeah, all these bad things, pollinator and soil functions are being reduced. Invertebrates are known to be losing populations, and that this includes pollinators. And this is because of what I said earlier, the reduction of native plants that they rely on. And then greater than 90% of the world's topsoils have been lost due to landfilling changes, and this is mainly caused by human development. Yeah, it's a lot. It's really kind of scary. But so the cool thing is that we can, at least in our local areas, because my work is actually focused on local functions, we can mitigate these losses through plant and management choices. So just to give you a few tips, if you're establishing any type of garden or pollinator garden, something that you want to feed them, establish them more than 3 meters away from roadsides because of exhaust pollution as well as runoff. These pollutants can get into the plants and these then transfer to pollinators and can be harmful. When possible, choose wild species. Again, this is probably something that you guys like to choose because cultivars can have different functions and actual lower functions. The root systems may be way less resilient than more wild species. If you're mowing your pollinator garden, just try to mow it once or twice a year outside of the blooming season, or mow like in sections, leaving some sort of nectar and pollen providing plants for the pollinators. And then know that my research and probably a lot of other people's research is looking into soil benefits. And likely because of our management approaches like adding compost and also like really like into gardens in general, we could be increasing carbon sequestration. As we saw before, the trends are higher. We just looked at a low sample size, so maybe with this higher sample size that we have this year, we might see differences. Maybe there also should be better nitrogen retention as well as higher water capacity. So the last thing that I will leave you with is leave your plants to live out their full life cycles. They go to these beautiful dead, situations, and some people just want to hack them out and get rid of them. But the really cool thing is that they support pollinators. So this is really great from the Xerces Society with this diagram. I think it was released like really recently, and it's showing that in the winter you leave your dead heads on the stalks, and then in the spring cut them so that the emerging bees, because most bees that are native are soulless, they don't have a hive or a nest that is with multiple individuals, just them, they're solo. So they will find these individual, like I said earlier, wild thistles, so this looks like an echinacea, and then they will make their nests within the stems. Those stems that have been cut will be covered up during the summer months, and then in the fall and winter, those little babies will live off their little nectar supplies that the moms gave to them. Specialist bees, they only have the prairie clover or whatever their specialty is. They'll feed on those pollen balls, and then in the spring they'll emerge. So with that, I would like to say thank you for your time. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah.